This is a wonderful activity. Many of you representing changes that I'm about to say are missing, or bringing the things that are missing. In the 1970s, Alvin Toffler, in his book, Future Shock, ended it with his prescription for anticipatory democracy. A few years later, Jim Dater, I, and Toffler started the Institute for Alternative Futures, and one of our first efforts was the book, Anticipatory Democracy. We looked at a number of things going on in the 70s. What's fascinating is that some are still around. Many have died out. Many in this room represent new and internet-enhanced and social media-enhanced opportunities. But for this talk, asked to say what's missing. The three things, for me, reflecting on our years of looking and working with government and governance, the things that are missing is the future, fairness, and shared vision. Those are the three things that I will talk about briefly. The future, a complex, effective sense of what might help, what might be, is missing from governments, and often from governance. Most governments do that. They do planning, they do a variety of things, but it's missing a number of things. Emerging issues, trends are often not adequately considered. Often our assumptions aren't examined or understood. We often do not ask what people prefer. We consciously don't weigh trade-offs. Hooray for Oakland in looking at the budget issue. There are a number of budget polls at the national level, and that's great. We're moving towards consciously doing that. But in general, it remains missing. We don't consider the impacts of our policies and decisions. Either clearly, in many cases, they're intended impacts, but even more, they're unintended impacts and side effects. Now, there are good news, and many of these, there's lots going on. There are whole sectors and movements to consider impacts, environmental impacts, physical impacts, health impacts, and even the San Francisco Health Department that was mentioned before is leading the country in the health impact assessment movement of looking at policies, and that's fantastic. But there's examples like the House of Representatives in D.C. has in its rules a requirement to do future research and forecasting in the areas of their jurisdiction. It's been ignored for most of its 40 years that it's been in the books. There are some good things happening. America Speaks, a number of the budget plebiscites that are going on, some of the things that we've heard about here, but in general, the future remains missing. There's many reasons for that. Entrenched interests that feel threatened by a more effective look at the future, the inability of policymaking to acknowledge potential effects that are negative, the inertia, and in particular in the last 20 years or so, increased partisanship that has made even looking at uncertainty or looking at negative effects of your ideas as opposed to the others has become more difficult. And then in many cases there's lack of a demand on the public to say that, to pursue that. So the second thing is fairness. And fairness is a focus on the distribution of opportunities and outcomes. It's not adequately present in government. It's there in parts, and again, it's growing. But fairness is a moving target. And for me, looking at trends, it reflects an increasing maturity of humanity. There are things that we used to think were fair or okay, and we changed our mind on those. Slavery, women's rights, segregation. They're all not done, but we've made major mind changes. Martin Luther King said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I'd argue that fairness is a piece of that. There are things that are happening, and in the federal government, for example, Healthy People 2010 moved from, in the year 2000, reduce health disparities, and these are the overarching goals for the U.S. 2010 to eliminate health disparities, and in 2020 to eliminate health disparities and achieve health equity. The language shifts before the actions do, but there's a movement there. And then the third thing that's missing is shared vision. And the shared vision essentially is an agreement to say that our values take us to create this future. It's our preferred future. Where that has been done in communities and governments, generally it has made a positive difference in their ability to change and their ability to create. Often they get overworked or die, but many of the communities here and around the country have done that. And so that there's an ongoing need for a shared felt vision in communities. So those three, the future, fairness, and shared vision, are my three things that are missing. Thank you.